Testing, testing, testing. Good day, this is Thumbs United. Let's get to work. Get back to work. Get your billion back, America. So we kind of have a lot to do, but it's all really simple stuff. So we'll see how much. Hopefully it'll go a long time. It's mainly just going to be me talking while we work. I was able to get to the lab today. Not the photo lab, the actual blood lab. And it was funny because, like, I'm used to getting my blood taken. There was this one time I was in the hospital, and every day, they come and take your blood. And so everyone who was in the hospital with me kind of knew this. One lady was not good at finding your vein. And so every time it was her shift or whatever to take the blood, we were like, oh no. Because what she would do is she would put the needle in your arm, and then if she didn't get your vein, which she never got your vein on the first go, she would wiggle it around in your arm until she found it, then stab it further. Oh my goodness, it was so painful. And it was like cringy, because it's like you see your arm moving around and everything, and it's like, and then stab. It's like getting stabbed twice. And so I went to get my blood taken this time, and I give the all I can think of is abacus. It's not the abacus. The office person, my prescription on what they want the labs for, and he's like, oh, you're getting a lot of tests. And I was like, no, I started to feel self-conscious. I was like, is this a lot of tests? Because I didn't really think so. But so then the lady calls me back, and I'm like, hello. And then hold on. And so the lady calls me back, and I'm like, hello. And then it's only 2 vials of blood they were taking. I was like, what? Because there have been times when I had to go get blood tested, and I think it was for when I was getting tested for my allergies. I kid you not, they needed like 5 vials of blood to do all the tests they wanted to do to see what I was allergic to. And I do not recommend the scratch test. A lot of people are like, oh, you have to get the scratch test. You can do the blood tests, and some doctors say, oh, well, it's not as accurate. And that's true. It does give you a general idea of what you're allergic to, but it's a lot easier than the scratch test, because the scratch test can lie, and you might have the reaction like 3 hours later after your session is over, and not right away. And the blood test really tells you, oh, you're allergic to peanuts, but the scratch test would say, oh, you're allergic to the peanuts this much. But highly recommend only doing the blood test, because once you know your allergies, or basic what you're kind of allergic to, you can kind of figure out what you feel good eating and what you don't. I really needed the blood test because I was doing a food journal, and it didn't matter what I ate, I was always sick, like vomiting and everything and breaking out in hives. But they weren't normal hives. It looked like I had been shot with a paintball, where it was just one huge raised bump on my wrist or my arm. And so so I couldn't figure out what it was. I thought it was from food, but it started happening all the time. But so then with the blood test, we were able to figure out that it was all the same kind of thing, like grains, but it's corn, wheat, soy, walnut, peanuts, and I'm allergic to elm tree, in addition to cats and dogs, and then I have hay fever. So I can't be around hay at all. I mean, like, I can be around it, but my throat will start to close. It's never closed completely, but I do get really wheezy and it gets difficult to breathe. I mean, I can handle it, but it's like I can't run. I have to be really slow and careful, or else it's like I can breathe a little bit, not that much. So I can't do like working on the farm type stuff, which is funny because I've actually worked on a farm, but it was difficult. I spent most of my time we were growing something. I forgot what we were growing. Was it tomatoes? I think we were growing tomatoes. But that was up in Canada. Yeah, so I got the blood test done, and then we went and picked up water. We got like 10, well, I guess it's technically 50 gallons of water. We got 10 barrels of like the office cooler water, and it fit very nicely in the minivan, and I brought it home. And that's the water we use for cooking and everything right now, because we don't trust the Flint water. Oh, but the most important part of the story. So, the phlebotomist, the person who steals the blood, she's looking at my arm and she's like, make a fist, and I do. And I can even see it on my arm, like I can't see the vein. Like, it just wasn't there. And I was like, that's weird, because we could see the vein going up my forearm, but not at the joint of the elbow. And so she was like, oh, you have some pretty good veins in your hand. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And she was like, let's go that way. So it was the first time they took blood from my hand, the vein in the back of my hand. And it was a little creepy, but it didn't hurt anymore or anything. It was just, I don't know, I was like being really careful. Don't start shaking while the needle's in your arm, you know. But so that was an experience. I had a shot that I had to take. They couldn't find I don't know what happened. They were giving me the medicine through my arm, but then the needle kept coming out of the vein. So then they had to give the rest of the medicine through the back of my hand. And that felt weird, because you can kind of feel, like when you get, blood tests done, you can't feel it coming out. But when you're getting medicine put directly into your vein, it's like you feel it, and it feels weird. I guess because it's colder or whatever, but it's the weirdest sensation. And we'll see what we're doing tomorrow. I have to record a lot of audio of me. I'm starting to do more visual audiobooks. So like right now on Photations, there's Pam the Pioneer, which I release one chapter every week. And so that the whole book will be published on the Photation YouTube channel by December. I think it's like December. It's mid-December that series finally finishes. But I have to continue work for Live to Tape and then Project Aerospace. And I have the books all selected. It's just I haven't had time to record it because where I live it's just gotten so much noisier. So the times that I used to be able to record, I can't record because they're doing construction at like all hours. And so I found one room that I can record in. And so I just set it up earlier. And then I'm planning on doing a lot of recording tomorrow. So if I still have a voice, I'll do a creative stream at night. But we'll see. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. And we're mainly just, I did all the color grades and everything, but we're gonna see if there are any more like bug splatter on the GoPro. The GoPro is mounted to the car. It's on the roof. You can see the car down there, but that's the antenna. And I have this is the 3D GoPro, so I can use it for doing 3D VR. So if you look at it, right now I have it cropped, but you can see it's much wider angle, and so the GoPro is actually standard. The standard lens is 122 degrees, which is close to 180. So it works for VR, where you can look to the left and you can see things on the left and the right. But then because I'm using the 3D GoPro, it's actually, you can use it for stereoscopic VR. So that's what I use it for. But the funny thing is that these photos that we're editing right now, they're mainly for social media, for the live to tape account on Twitter and Instagram. And so when I'm promoting the VR content and everything, on social media I post these photos. But when we're actually going to edit the documentary and the visual audiobook for the series, they will be essentially, we work natively with the photographs in the video editor. And the video editor I use is the Blender visual sequence editor. And what's nice is it's free, but it works on Linux too, and that's what's really good. It works on Windows, it works on Linux, it works on Mac, all the exact same. And so I built these Linux boxes, and I have this like heavy duty batch script that I wrote, and it will just render till the cows come home. And so that's how I'm able to do these longer projects where they're like 20-minute episodes, but there's 22 episodes and everything in 3D or 4K. Yeah, I used to use Premiere a lot. I really loved Premiere Elements. It was Premiere Elements 10, and what was nice is I would edit on my laptop at a MacBook Pro, and then my Windows PC had Premiere Pro, and so I could edit on my laptop and then put the hard drive in my desktop, and then Premiere Pro can convert the Premiere Elements files, and so then it would render everything fine on the PC. And so I could be editing something completely different while the other projects were rendering. But Premiere got a little unreliable. And I'm using CS6, and from what I've heard from other photographers and cinema people who use Premiere Pro, Creative Cloud, like sometimes it works really well, but other times it just straight up crashes. I was encoding this video really quickly that I edited in Premiere, and the audio was there and everything was set up right, but for whatever reason whenever I exported it, it was missing a whole track of audio. So it was like the soundtrack was always missing. And so then I'd go back and look in Premiere, and sure enough, it's there. And then every time it exported, it wasn't. And it's funny that I'm telling you this story because I actually use Premiere a lot more for audio editing. I do, like I was saying before, I edit and everything and have it render on Linux, but I do the soundtrack and sound mixing in Premiere, and then I have Media Encoder just export the audio only, and then the Linux boxes, they go and they add the audio back into the movie. And so that new process, that new workflow of using Premiere to do really fast batch edits, that works very well. What is the word? For Project Aerospace, I did that, and there was something else. There was a lot of work for Project Aerospace where episodes I had to do. Oh, and that's the good news. So, last Friday, I was flying at the park. I packed up all my stuff, and I was flying this remote control airplane, and it's a smaller one than I'm used to flying. But so I only had it carrying 2 cameras, but it was carrying one 360 camera, and then a GoPro on the tail. And the GoPro was there just because it needed weight on the back, and I have weights I can put on it to balance out the plane, because balance is really important, and most people don't think about that with airplanes. But if the nose is too heavy, then the plane goes down towards the ground, which is actually, it's kind of better that way than having the tail be too heavy. If the tail is too heavy, then you can't control the plane at all. With a nose that is slightly too heavy, you can pull up and adjust a little bit, but if the tail's too heavy, then you're toast. You are toasted. It essentially goes straight up into a stall, and you can't ever recover, and then it just dive bombs. But so the GoPro is lighter than the 360 cam, which is on the nose, and so the GoPro kind of balances out the back. And then where you place the battery also affects how the balance is. And so I got the balance nailed, and it was perfect. And so I was like, okay, everything's ready. I picked it up, threw it. It did. It kind of went up in the air, arched a little bit, and then started to go down. But I wasn't worried or anything. So then I kept it at full throttle, and then as it sped up, it went up higher in the air, and I was getting it to level out, and then it started to go down a little bit, even though I was pulling up. I'm like, this is weird. And so I turned the plane to have it come back towards me, because when I throw it, it goes away from me, and then I have it go pretty far straight away from me, and then I bring it back around. So I brought it back around, and it's higher in the air, and then the motor just stops. And I'm like, what? That makes no sense. And so the motor stops, but I still have control over the ailerons and everything. So I still have control, just no motor. And there was no signal loss or anything. And then what was really nice is that I built in this autopilot. And so it's gliding, and it's just gliding straight. And I nose down a little bit so it doesn't lose too much speed, and then it lands kind of in the bushes. Didn't have enough altitude where it could have glided all the way back to me. So it was technically a crash landing, but nothing was broke, and it just gently skimmed to land in the bushes. It was really tall grass, not bushes. But yeah, so over the week I ordered new parts for it, where I thought it was the speed controller that died. But it turned out that's not what it was at all. It was the motor actually died. And so I was like, what? So I have a really beefy speed controller now. And then I replaced the motor with the motor of a plane I had before. And that was in parts. And so I finally got the last piece to screw it on they call it the shaft of the motor. And it fits, everything looks well. And so I'm all excited because it's like, yeah, I can fly again. And then the entire week, I kid you not, the entire week is nothing but thunderstorms and rain. And I was like, no. Of course, I'm finally ready to fly, and I have to wait a whole week to get back out. And it's not just, I mean, it's important not to fly in the rain, especially because it's an electric airplane. And electricity and rain don't do well together. But when the rain's not the only problem you have to worry about. The big problem is wind. Like with a quadcopter, I've flown in 20 mile per hour winds. I don't recommend it, but it's really difficult to fly airplanes in high wind just because they always have to keep going forward to stay in the air. And so you're either flying away from you or you're flying towards you. And so when you're flying the plane towards you, it's the opposite. You move the stick to the left and the plane goes to the right. Versus when you turn it around and it's going away from you, then it's, you move the stick to the left, it goes to the left. It's the orientation of the plane. But that's really hard to remember and correct when it's really windy, because it's like, oh, the wing's tilting to the left, and then you have to remember I have to tilt to the right to compensate that and everything. Because the controllers don't send back feedback. If you were in a real plane and the wind came, the controls, the joystick would fight you a little bit, and that's how you would correct. But with the remote control airplane, you really have to kind of imagine what the airplane is feeling up there. And so it's always best to fly. I like to fly at anything below 7 miles per hour winds, like really light winds. Like anything 5 miles per hour is good. And it's really easy to do that actually if you get up early and go at sunrise. Over the day, the earth gets hotter, and as the earth gets hotter, there are more thermals. And so what the thermals do is it's hot air from the ground, and it goes upwards. So when you start out in the early in the day, the earth's still cool, and there's not a lot of wind. There's usually always less wind in the morning. It's before everything starts heating up. But if you're flying like an actual glider with people in it, you actually want to go later in the day because the thermals will lift the glider, so you can glide longer and farther just coasting with no motor on the air currents. And so that's pretty good for gliders, but not so good for remote control airplanes. Alright, I think we're good. I'm going to move on to the next set. This next set's shorter. Okay, first things first. We are going to we're going to get rid of the lens we're going to set lens correction. So this is the GoPro, and it's technically the Hero 2, but the lens is the same for the Hero 2 and Hero 1. So that's set, and then we're going to kind of do a universal crop, where we're just cropping out the car. There we go. And then the adjustments we're going to make are something generic so that they kind of can apply to all of the photographs we're going to edit. And then if needed, we will do some more editing. But because this is just for social media, we don't have to fine tune as much. I mean, we should always do everything fine tuned, but these are not so much photographs we're going to print. So there we go. And while it thinks, I'm going to take a short break. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Let's get back to work. I kind of made a generic one. It was supposed to be, and it didn't synchronize. Kind of the whole point why I took the break was so it could catch up. Synchronize. There we go. We're just... Well, we'll see how far along we go. I was just gonna say, this is the last section. But the next section is pretty short too. The first 3 sections were really long. The first one was 50 photos. The next one was 330. Then the one after that was 400. This one's only 193. And the next one is 220. So it should go fast. And we're just looking at the color and seeing if there's any. Make sure there's no bugs on the camera. Giving the computer a chance to catch up. And this part of Northern California was so beautiful. I mean, I was really lucky because when we were driving there, we were almost going to drive further, so we would have missed all this because it would have been dark while we were driving. But we really got to see it, right when the sun came up. This was all shot in the morning, not in the afternoon. Now we're gonna go into wine country. Computer has to catch up. We're halfway done with this, so I think we'll definitely be able to do another one. There weren't that many. It's weird because traveling along, just some areas don't have a lot of bugs, so you don't hit a lot. But then also, it depends the time of day. Like, the bugs come out at sunset and dusk, and they're really attracted to the headlights, so they really swarm towards the freeways. And then at nighttime, when I stop to take the cameras off, it's just they're covered in grossness with the bug splatter and everything, and I have to clean it off. But And in some areas, it's just like there should be like a lot of insects and everything in the forest and whatnot. And like right here, there just isn't. And it's like, that's weird. So I think some areas spray a lot of pesticides and others don't. But in the farming areas, there's a lot of bugs at sunset. Big ones too. And we're making our way down the mountain. Yeah, I think we're done. We are done. Okay, the next section's a little longer, but well, you should have no problem. No problem. This is in the Armstrong forest we're gonna go into. So, kind of same procedure. And to fix the distortion, the lens distortion of the GoPro, and then we're going to crop. And it's kind of important that you crop after you fix the lens distortion, because you can see it kind of drags out the corners, and so it really changes how you would compose your image. Now we're going to do the light color editing. Not color editing, but toning and everything. Okay, now we're gonna synchronize all these settings. We're gonna have to do this multiple times. Looks pretty good. And so this is in the Armstrong National Forest Reserve. So I thought there'd be a lot of editing we'd have to do differently because this is at twilight. The sun sets at about 8:30 when we were in California. And so we got there at 6 and it was almost completely dark because the trees are so tall and they block out so much light, and you're in the mountains, and so then you're in the shadow of the mountain and then the shade of the trees on top of that, so it really looked like nighttime. Once we got there. But yeah, I think we're done. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. We've been streaming for an hour. That's really the comfort zone for me. Streaming, I like to stream like hour 45 or 2 hours, but this is a short stream. But it was very pleasant. We had a lot of viewers today. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Fingers crossed, if I still have a voice after I do all the narration work tomorrow, I will do a live stream. We'll do a creative live stream. But like I said, I have books to narrate, literal books. And I'm going to try to do 12 chapters tomorrow. I can easily do 6 chapters a day, but I'm going to really push myself. So I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone has a good weekend. And I'd like to see everyone tomorrow. So thanks for stopping by, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.